D&D Story / DM tips. Run illegal auction for your players. So like any good illegal auction, step number 1 is finding your way to the illegal auction. This can be done through either NPCs or the thieves can read, thieves can't. The way I did it for my players is they had to go left on John Street, find the metal door that's red, and then a slot will open after they knock twice. Once the slit is open, they have to insert 2 copper pieces, 2 silver pieces, 3 gold pieces, and 1 platinum piece and close the slit. Once they do that, the door will open. Once the door opened, they all walked in, and then the door shut. After it shut, a magic melt appeared that said, take a seat, and the auction will start soon. Once they all took a seat, flashes of red, orange, and then black. Next thing they know is he seemed to teleport to this auction hall, but actually it's just all an illusion. This being an illusion can be good for a few reasons. Number 1, you can introduce NPCs that might not be seen until later in the story and maybe allow them to get some ally / kinship with them or make some enemies early on. Another good benefit is the party doesn't have to worry about getting robbed themselves, and as a DM, you don't have to worry about the party robbing the auction. The way I did it was a very powerful devil patron named Dante runs the auction himself, and he uses his devils to plane shift to the location of the people that win the auction items, bring it to them, and collect payment. And because a powerful sadistic devil runs this auction, they accept the form of payment in gems, coins, favors, body parts, and your soul. The Aircockler in my group gave up their talents, they can no longer use their claw attack, and the one Tabaxi gave up their left ear and their left pinky finger, so they have disadvantage on all perception checks that require hearing. The devil gave them each 1,000 gold pieces for those offerings. I made so they could mix and match. For example, Mr. Whiskers here had to pay 2,000 gold, their left ear, and their left pinky finger to buy the angel gun that they got. The party can pick a body part they're willing to give up, or a favor they're willing to do, and then the devil will set the prices. Now you're asking, what should I auction? I think of 1 item per player, and then I also think of some useful common items, and then some items they probably won't want, but maybe some NPCs buy that they can see who it goes to. My party ended up buying the 1-star Dragon Ball, which gives you a +1 survival checks and a once-a-day chromatic orb. They also managed to buy the Fangs of Drain, which is a +1 to bite attacks and does 1d4 bonus necrotic damage that you can heal for once a day. Another item they bought is the Lunar Cloak of Protection, which is just a standard cloak of protection, but if it is a full moon, you stand completely still and don't attack or cast spells, you are invisible. Another item they bought is just a standard Braces of Defense, just +2 to AC for anyone who's not wearing armor or a shield. Next thing I made is called an Angel Gun. It's based off of the Grim Hollow's Black Powdered Pistol, but I made it do an extra +1 and 1d4 radiant damage. Next is a Flask of Rest, which allows a fighter as a bonus action to drink this flask, giving them a second win as well as advantage on athletics checks for the next minute. They can only do this once a day. And the final item that my party bought that is not the Angel is the Loot of Leslie. This is a +1 loot for bards that can be used as a finesse weapon doing 1d6 damage. It also adds +1 to their spell DC and attack modifiers. On top of this, all bardic inspiration dice add a +1 when you use the loot to inspire people. It's funny because the bard who was bidding on this was versus this guy down here that I called the Rock, who rocks out with his giant axe guitar, and they didn't realize how good of an item was, so they almost just give it away to this guy for virtually nothing. So there's a bidding war going on between our bard and the bard group over here. And what ended up happening to get the price lower, Luska here, the fish person, ended up flirting with them to distract them from the actual auction itself, which made it so that they won the auction for cheaper than they should have. Which remember, though they were in Illusion Place, you can still interact with the NPCs around. And the final item that they won was control over this seraph called Jara. Actually, Dragon Fist here bought it and then gave it to our party member here, Set, as previously stated, for the wish and the chance to meet their god's avatar. The seraph has a holy quest to do, and that was mentioned during the auction, so Set, when they got control of them, said, you can go and do your holy quest, and you do not have to be controlled by me anymore. Dara realized that this person must have a pretty pure heart, despite being a pirate, to give up a wish to come and rescue them and send them back on their holy quest. So as a reward, they offered to make them a seraph themselves following the Grim Hollow's rules. And now for the items that the NPCs bought. We have a Ring Ascending. These are 2 magically linked rings, so when one person has one on their finger and another person has theirs on their finger, they can communicate in a talking voice from up to 120 feet away. Another item is called the Changing Sword. This sword is made by the God of Curses, who makes the most powerful magic items, but they're always cursed. This particular sword is either a dagger, short sword, great sword, scimitar, or any kind of sword that you wish it to be size-wise. It is a +2 sword that does a bonus 1d4 necrotic damage, but the downside is you need a 7th level remove curse to unattune to this, and will attune to it if you die and 2 hours pass and you're not revived, then your soul goes to the god Horus. Next, we have the Great Sword of Wagon, which is another sword by Horus, a cursed one. This is a great sword that is a +1 great sword that allows you to move 5 feet extra, though you have disadvantage on all weapon attacks with any other weapon, and if you try to grab a weapon that is not this weapon, you have to make a DC 10 dex check or you grab something else. Next, we have the Tailcoat of the Roach, which is a fancy tailcoat that looks like a roach. Once attuned to it, The creature can use their regular movement speed while prone as you magically crawl like a cockroach. Another item is called the Dagger of Shadows. It's a +1 dagger that's extremely light and does 1d4 slashing damage plus 1d4 necrotic damage. The user once a day can wrap themselves in shadow and only themselves and cast Pass Without Trace for an hour. Another item, which is one of my personal favorites, is called the Hand Crossbow of Madness. It is a +1 hand crossbow that allows you to, when crit, cast a Crown of Madness on the character and they have to make a DC 12 check. They fail the check, well, then they start to go mad. I had a Quarterstaff Lightning, which is a +1 quarterstaff that emits lightning from the end, hitting an enemy for an additional 1d6 damage. If you crit an enemy, they must make a DC 15 con save or be stunned till the start of your next turn. Thievery Paper, which is a one-piece ripoff. It is a piece of paper that you put your essences into. It can be ripped up to 8 pieces, and then the paper can magically know which direction you're in as long as you're on the same plane of existence. If you die, the paper will slowly burn up. And then probably the most powerful magic item ever made, the Skull of Gragas. This is a +2 to attack and DC saving throws for all mages, and a once-a-day free fear. But the downside to it is the more magic you cast, the more this skull actually becomes your real skull as you start to grow horns out of it. Once it becomes your real skull, there's some major disadvantages. The disadvantages are, every time you cast a cantrip, you take 1 psychic damage. Every time you cast a first level spell, you take 1d4 plus 1 psychic damage. Every time you cast a second level spell, you take 2d4 plus 2 psychic damage, so on and so forth. And this damage is unavoidable. So clearly this is very high risk, very high reward. You're probably wondering why a ton of the people look the exact same wearing these black cloaks. Well, some people were offered the chance to magically shield themselves, but they had to make a deal with the devil to do so. So if you're going to run an auction like this, I highly suggest thinking of at least one item per player and some common items that would be useful for everyone in some weird general cases. Thus, I would put a halftime and a chance at the end for your characters to interact with all these NPCs. This would be great for building alliances and figuring out news about the world. A good example of information being spread is the lioness here got information from the party about the country that they were in having a blockade in it, so the lioness in return gave them information about a war that was going on in a different country. Or the Lich over here runs a game show that's kind of like the Hunger Games, and a few of the players roleplayed that they were big fans of the show despite this being the first time I ever talked about it. Lich in turn offered them a chance to participate on the show. They all declined, but they asked for t-shirts. And then they kind of pissed off the vampires here for being dicks to them. So what we've gathered from this auction is not just some cool items that you can give your players, but also they can gain information on some new NPCs and make some allies and learn a bit more about the world. Hope this video is helpful. Comment down below your favorite item that I listed or your favorite item in general so maybe I can include it in my campaigns in the future.